Ms. Mark? No, you're fine. My name is Jim Hogaboom. I have the privilege of being the superintendent of LMUSD Unified School District, and I'm excited to be here today and really appreciate all of you guys taking your time to join us for what is actually the second of 3 of our community vision meetings this year. So some of you are parents, and some of you are teachers, and some of you are business people, and some of you are from foundations, and we have board members. So today is a great cross-section of people. Some are visitors. So we're really happy to have you here today. We have spent really the last year trying to put together a vision for how we want to be in the future for CMR. And we have a framework for that vision, and I want to just briefly touch on that. And then I want to share with you what I think are some really exciting ways that we want to move forward towards that vision, so you can see what 21st century learning looks like. And you know, we're in a time of really brutal budget cuts. We're expecting a hit, and we're anticipating, we don't know what that's going to be. But our task and our challenge is to move forward in the face of those budget cuts. So we hope to get you excited about what we're doing, and then we're going to ask for your support. So I would like to start, and there's a book that we've been reading called 21st Century Skills, funny enough. And one of the authors was Bernie Trilling, and we actually had, Bernie was one of the guest speakers at a community forum we had last year. And so I wanted to just read a couple little quotes from here. One of them says, "We are currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that have not yet been invented, in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet." And that was by Richard Riley, who was then Secretary of Education under Clinton. So he talks really, to me in a nutshell, we are trying to prepare our students for an uncertain world and an uncertain future. And kind of the premise of this book is that the world has changed so fundamentally in the last few decades that the roles of learning and education in day-to-day living have also changed forever. So the world that I knew, even in the last 30 years or so, since I went to school, is dramatically different. I mean, when I went to school, like when one of you guys went to school, the teacher was a dispenser of information. They were the content deliverer. And we didn't have the internet, you know, we had encyclopedias. So, which we hope were up to date, right? So you'd go get the information out of the encyclopedia, and teachers would really give, they were the ways that kids got information. And that has totally changed now. And the world has dramatically changed. So now the teachers are not deliverers of content, they are deliverers of context. Their job is really to show students how the information that they have out there, how it meets together, how to analyze that information, how to synthesize that information, how to make sense of that information, how to put it in a context. Because with the computer and with the internet, we can go find the answer to almost any question we have right now. So what I would suggest is that the world has changed dramatically in the last 20 years, but our educational system has not. You know, unfortunately, there's too much of, when I was in school, is how it looks today. And we have tons of pockets of innovation in our district, and a lot of the teachers in this room are those deliverers of innovation. But things have changed so dramatically that really we have got to find new ways of doing things, and it looks different. So our task and our question really last year was, what skills do our students need to be successful in the 21st century? In a world that has changed so dramatically, you know, what do they need? And so we held, you know, I won't go through the whole thing because we kind of talked about that last time, but we had community forums, we had meetings at the high schools, I went around and talked to every school in the district. We had surveys, again, guest speakers asking that question, what do our skills need to be successful? And I think a lot of you guys were involved in that. We also had a Vision 2020 committee that kind of took all that input, and from that, we crafted what we call our Vision 2020 framework, and this is what's in your packet right here. So I think the committee did a fantastic job of coming up with what one of our criteria was. We have a compelling mission statement, which I think we do, and boiled down to 3 words. That's engage, challenge, and inspire. And to me, if we're not doing those things, then learning can't happen. So I love that mission statement, and we've been spending a lot of time talking in schools and with our principals about what does that mean to engage students. How do you get kids engaged? How do you challenge kids? And how do you inspire students so that they can really So we've been talking about that a lot this year. We did a lot of work around our core values as a district. What would those core values be? What have they been? What's going to sustain us? And these values don't change. You know, if we stand for integrity, then 10 years from now, integrity is still going to be our value. If teamwork and working together is really important to us, then that doesn't change either. So these are kind of internal values that we want our teachers to have, our principals, all of our staff. We hope our students have these values as well, because they're going to guide us through tough times. And then kind of what we're going to talk the most about today is our vision. And our vision is that we will be the model school district for 21st century learning in the nation. And that's an ambitious goal, but I think we can do that. And the way we're going to do that is by making sure that kids not only have the foundational skills in core subjects. So it's not that math and science and reading and history and PE and those core subjects aren't important. But my suggestion is that that's not enough. Having those core subjects these days is not going to lead our students to be successful. It's just not. They've got to be critical thinkers and problem solvers. They've got to be innovative and creative. They've got to know how to work together in teams. There are very few professions these days where you work individually by yourself. So again, working with businesses and people, those were the 7 skills that we came up with. And that's what really the challenge is to our schools is, especially in an age of accountability and all this standardized testing that really does measure pretty well for core foundational subjects. How do you measure those things like creativity or problem solving or critical thinking that we know are just as important? So we have a lot of work to do to try to figure out, now that we kind of know where we're going, we have this vision and we know what that looks like, then we need to figure out, well, how are we going to get there? How are we going to move the district forward in the face of budget cuts and standardized tests and achievement gaps and all that? And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. So the challenge that I've given to our schools is not only how do we engage, challenge, and inspire our students, but how are you going to make sure that our students not only know the core fundamental skills, but that they know these 21st century skills as well. So I told them we wouldn't overwhelm these, so we're going to take these a little slowly. So that, again, there's pockets of innovation going on with these now. But we picked one of self-direction. We think that if students are self-directed, then they'll be self-motivated, and that skill, if you have to pick one or two that's really important, then that would be one of them we'll take a look at. So this summer, we're going to bring some of our teachers in and talk about what does that mean? If you're self-directed, what does that look like? Is it time management? Is it goal setting? What are those key components of being self-directed? And then we're going to try to come up with some assessments of that. What does that look like? How do we measure it? How do we assess it? Can we come up with some rubrics that would assess self-direction? And then talk some about how do we teach that? As a teacher, how in the world do you teach a kid to be self-directed? And as a parent, I'd like to know that myself. Well, one of my kids is self-directed and one isn't. So anyway, so that's kind of our challenge. And so today, what we've asked our schools, and our schools have a lot going on, but we've kind of asked our schools to think about how are you going, is there a theme, is there something that you can get your school excited about that would help you move towards those 21st century learning goals. So today what we want to share with you are a couple ideas that we've been looking at. And I guess the last thing I did mention is we did a lot of visitations last year. We went down to San Diego, we went down to Los Angeles, we went to Napa New Tech High, we went to Tracy Learning Center. We've been to Texas, we've been all over the place trying to find innovative model programs and how our schools doing this kind of work. And so about half of our schools actually did those visitations. And you're going to hear from a couple of them today. You're going to hear about Napa New Technology High School. And we're blessed to have some students and the families talk about New Tech a little bit because we think it's important for you to hear from students themselves. And then another program that Grover Beach is interested in is International Baccalaureate. And they saw the early years program down in San Diego, which has a lot of magnet schools. So those are kind of our two specific, so you say, well, 21st century learning, what does that look like? And all that. We want to give you some ideas about how that might help kids to hit these 21st century skills. So with that, one of our principals who's been very excited about New Technology High is Michelle Johnson from Tacoma High School. So I'd like to turn it over to Michelle, who's been to a conference in Chicago on New Tech and been on numerous New Tech visits all over the world. And she's going to talk to you a bit about New Tech.
Try to use a little technology as I'm standing here.